Welcome into the latest episode of Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara joined as always by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Mosley. We're here to preview Oregon's matchup against Stanford Saturday at Autzen Stadium. It is a 1:07 kickoff on Pac-12 Network. This going into the season, always a game you circle on the calendar. These two teams have battled for not only the Pac-12 North, but the Pac-12 Championship since the Pac-12 came into effect and started having a championship game. It's been either Oregon or Stanford at the top of the heap. Not so this year. Stanford got off to a rough start, started to pull it together a little bit. Oregon, obviously, their difficulties are known at this point, got off to a rough start, and right now, neither of these teams really are in contention for the Pac-12 championship. That said, still, I think it's still a game that both of these teams are going to get up for. These two teams still have some key players that are left over from years past that maybe are not having the seasons that they wanted to. And Christian McCaffrey on Stanford's side, Royce Freeman on Oregon's side. But when the ball goes in the air on Saturday, it's going to be Oregon-Stanford regardless of the records.
Yeah, it'll be two teams in the same uniforms. Well, Oregon's never quite in the same uniform, but yeah, markedly different circumstances, obviously. But still, both have a lot to play for. I mean, Stanford still can, with Keller Chris, the new quarterback, kind of revitalizing things, getting them going the other way. They could still have like a 9-win season that you look back on and say, okay, that was pretty good when you graduate a quarterback like Kevin Hogan and how experienced he was, and you bounce back. They can feel pretty good about that. Oregon is fighting for its life to try to keep its postseason hopes alive, and a win would make the Ducks feel great about their chances to maybe go to Utah then and try to pull off an upset on the road and then finish strong in the Civil War. So, the context is different, but the circumstances aren't in terms of there being a lot on the line for both teams. It just, after Washington and Washington State and their rise this year, it's just not for the division title, the conference title, and all that.
Now, the records might be a little bit different, but the way that these two teams play or attempt to play really hasn't changed. Oregon still with the up-tempo offense. Stanford is still going to grind it out. And you mentioned Kevin Hogan not being there anymore. He certainly, in hindsight, was more of a dynamic quarterback in terms of a guy that could pass the ball and throw the ball than we're seeing this year. Chris is relatively new into the offense. He's revitalized things, but he's definitely a guy that's going to run the ball quite a bit, isn't going to throw it as much, but I would expect to see plenty of Stanford's ogre formation against Oregon, where they just line up what appears to be 25 offensive linemen, and then they just gradually move the pile 3 yards at a time.
Yeah, I think Oregon faces in the last 3 games this season 3 of the 4 most run-heavy offenses in the conference in Stanford, Oregon State, Utah. The other of the 4 is Arizona. The Ducks don't play, but and Oregon's weakness is rush defense. So it's just going to be a monumental challenge for Oregon defensively to slow any of these three teams down, beginning with Stanford and their physical style and McCaffrey and his cutback ability and all that. Your hope would be the Ducks feel like they can sacrifice some things on the back end to try to load up the box, really commit to stopping the run, and maybe even things out. And as odd as it sounds, as I think about this matchup, I think you want to try to have Stanford have to grind out drives. You don't want to give up big plays to McCaffrey, explosion plays. And then you hope that Oregon's offense can do what it's needed to do to give them a chance this year, which is probably put up 40-something points. If you can put up 42 points and then make Stanford, only grind out 4 or 5 scoring drives over the course of a game, you got a shot.
Well, the recipe too in the past really hasn't changed a whole lot. If Oregon can get out in front, if they get their offense going like they want it to, then it puts, then they set the tempo, they set the tone, and it forces Stanford to maybe throw the ball a little bit more. It might force them to play a little bit faster and not so deliberately if they're playing from behind. I brought the same point up when Oregon went into USC, that they needed to be able to set that tone. They got themselves in a 17-0 hole, and it was done. It really is that simple, I think, when you look at the pieces that are in place currently. Oregon's so thin right now defensively, and it's one of those things where you'd like to see them grind it, but at the same time, by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, if you don't have a lead, you're going to be it's just human nature. You're going to feel that pounding a lot more
for sure
at that point than you would if you were in front on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to see the Ducks win the coin toss again, take the ball again, but then finally change things up and go score with it. Because that's been the recipe, and that's unchanged. It's just not being executed this year, and I don't know, whether it's a nerves thing or a youth thing or a play calling thing. It's probably a combination of all that, but they just can't get off to quality starts very often, and that that's got to change for this team to really give itself its best chance to win a game. And particularly against Stanford and the style they play. So, Justin Herbert, that young offensive line, they've played enough football now that, they should be able to count on themselves to handle that moment, to be calm in that situation, whether they get the ball first or not, but try to put up some early points and really establish some things. It's going to be senior day. There's going to be some emotions. Maybe that's something the Ducks can feed off of and build off of. Again, there's the desperation to get into the postseason. The motivation's there. You just got to go out and execute it.
Yeah, Oregon, when they've won the toss, have elected to receive several times this year. And really, against a team like Cal or Washington State, when there are going to be a bazillion drives either way, it's not as big of a deal. But when you take the ball first and you go 3 and out against the Stanford or against a Washington, a team that can really just sort of grind you down, that's where things become porous for the Ducks, and we've seen it too many times this season. Hopefully, we'll have a different storyline to talk about on Monday when we wrap this all up. In the meantime, if you want to get to us, we are on Twitter. You probably are too, maybe. I'm at McNamara UO. He is at Duck Football. Until next time, we'll see you.